chatting with Kit Sargent, author of Nancy Wake. Welcome, Kit.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited that you're here today. Before we really dive into the book, and I loved it, and I love historical fiction, and I love true so that I can get something true out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love good characters. And so your book kind of hit all of those things for me. But before we really dive in, give us just a quick elevator pitch as to what people are going to find when they open up the cover of Nancy Wake.
So I'm calling it Real Housewives of Marseille becomes a spy against the Nazis.
I love that. And it's a very quick, and it gives you a real understanding of what we're going to find here. What made you decide World War II historical fiction was the thing you wanted to do?
So I have been published for 10 years, and I started writing contemporary women's fiction. So I have 2 novels out there. My second one was called What It Is, and it won Kindle Scout, which is a defunct Amazon program. So I kind of thought, oh, this is going to be my big break. And it wasn't.
No.
I moved on to historical fiction, and I really like Philippa Gregory, Alison Weir. The same. I like to read history, but like also have it be true. So I'm like, okay, I wonder if I could attempt something like that. And my whole premise is to write about really strong, smart women. So I typed into Google, smart women in history that you've never heard of. And the first thing that popped up was 355. And I'm like, I've never heard of 355. Who is that? She was a spy for Washington's spying. And I was like, okay, I could write about a women spy in the Revolutionary War. And then my mind started going like, I could write about women spies in the Civil War. I could write about World War I. So it was exactly what I did. I have a women's spy book on the Rev War, Civil War, World War I. And then I started writing The Spark of Resistance, which is women spies in World War II. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a trilogy in its own right. And then after that, I moved on to Marie-Madeleine, and then I went with Nancy Wake, and I'm still going. So it was kind of a continuum, but I've just finished my 6th book on World War II. So I've been in World War II for a while, and I'll probably stay there for a while too.
So let's talk about research, because I know that it takes research to do historical fiction. And I actually love the research process. Some people do not. Where do you fall in the research?
I love it a lot, probably a little too much.
Yeah,
because, and I know you do this too, like you fall down the rabbit hole and you're like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And I often, when I'm writing, I run into like the idea for my next book, and I'm like, nope, I have to put that on the back burner. I'm researching this. That's where I'm going with it.
I have a little file that I keep those ideas in, and it's like, okay, see, I wrote it down. Now brain's shut off. Yeah. We can't go there right now. So I understand that completely.
Yeah, I actually have a science background. So to me, like research is, and I spend too much time, not enough time writing sometimes. And I walk away from my computer. I'm like, wow, I just spent 6 hours researching. I didn't write a word. Yeah. So I have to temper myself in.
I have to do the same thing. I call myself a research junkie. In fact, I use that hashtag. Feel free to use it as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why historical fiction was kind of where I went first when I started writing, is because it got to marry 2 things I really love, which is research and writing together. And I love learning. I could have been a lifelong college student.
Me too. For sure. Yeah.
So it's like, well, what do you want to do next? I don't know. Let's find a cool class. I just love learning. And so historical fiction was a natural fit for me. There have been biographies and novels, autobiographies even, out there about Nancy Wake. What made you decide that you wanted to put another one out there, and how is yours different from what's already out there about her?
I think she just spoke to me. So, and my whole premise is women spies, all the strong women, and Nancy's just amazing. I think she's one of my favorite characters still to this day. And I've written my earlier books, they all have 3 to 4 women. So at this point, I've written about probably 15 to 20 main characters, and just Nancy is one of my favorites. And she's just super spunky. She does everything her Nancy way. And I kind of like felt like I could embody her a little bit. And so I think I'm a little spunky too. So I think the way I told her might set it off a little bit, because I really like dug her so much. Yeah. And I can definitely empathize. My husband and I were watching a movie last night, and like the question came up, what historical figure would you have lunch with? And I was like, oh my gosh, how would I answer that? I've written so many women. I'm like, it'd be Nancy.
It'd be Nancy. So, well, other than her spunkiness, what is it about her that just spoke to you that way?
Obviously, all of these women in World War II are just undeniably brave. And like, you think, could you have done what they have done? And I don't know the answer to that. I hopefully will never be in that place, but just everything she sacrificed, her bravery. And then she just did it with all her spunkiness. And even when, things were really dire and terrifying, she just kept up her same heart and her spunk.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts was when she had to go, can't remember what she was picking up. She was picking up something and she had to go by bicycle.
Yeah, she had to get a transmitter. So basically,
That's okay.
They're completely cut off from England and they had no way to get back to respond. So she had to go find a radio. And she did. And she had to cycle, I think it was like 300 kilometers in 70 hours or something absolutely ridiculous.
Right. And so you're talking about, we're in the middle of a war. We're not talking about, you and I just out pedaling on the side of the road. She's in a war situation in which at any moment she can be taken as a prisoner, right? She's a spy, so she knows way too much. And she's out there as a woman just cycling along on a bicycle and picks up this radio to bring it back. So I like you, I liked her spunkiness, the fact that she was like, I can do it. And really in so many ways, she could do it because she was a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a lot easier for women to get around at that point in time in France because they had the obligatory work service going on. And the Maquis, a lot of them were just avoiding that work service and had fled for the hills.
Well, and I think too, people weren't looking for women to be doing something as big and bold as taking a transmitter across the country on a bicycle. They just weren't looking for it. Whereas if a man had been out there, they would have been saying, yeah, what is he up to?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is part of a series and you did Marie-Madeleine first, right?
Yep.
And then now Nancy Wake. Who's going to be the third? You said it was a trilogy?
Yeah, it's going to be Virginia Hall.
Okay.
So I just finished my 9th historical fiction book. I took a tiny break from women's spies to write about, it's called The Doctor of Auschwitz. And so that one spoke to me too. Like I felt like I had to write about Adelaide Haupt-Fall. And so Virginia Hall's been sort of on the back burner for a couple of years now, but I'm ready because the Doctor's out and it's I actually sent it to my ARC readers yesterday. So it's out of my hands.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Planning publishing in the next couple of weeks. And then Virginia Hall is coming.
Now tell us a little bit. I don't know anything about Virginia Hall. What did she?
So she's an American, which I haven't written about an American since the Civil War. Right. So I'm excited. She found herself in France at the outbreak of the war. She actually only had one leg. So she lost her leg in a hunting accident way back when. So she's wandering around France spying on a wooden leg.
Wow, that's really incredible. I love that. So that one will be the next one in this series. You said 3. Do you think you'll do more, or do you think there's just going to be the 3?
I also have Violet Szabo in my head, so
maybe 4,
maybe 5.
And then when you're doing research on that one, there may be 5, right?
Yeah, there's so many amazing women. I don't think I'll ever run out of material. So that's a good point.
So I have a World War II as one of my historical fiction. It's called An Enemy Like Me. But one of the things that I've noticed is it's hard to market it and make it stand out among all the other World War II books. What do you do to help your books kind of stand out in the marketing idea? Because boy, I'm looking for my own information right now as much as for anyone else who's out there.
Well, I definitely have to give a shout out to my cover designer, Hannah Linder. She's amazing. And I think that's one thing is the cover stand out. And I didn't notice it, but when I published Spark, somebody wrote, I had a Facebook ad and they wrote, a woman facing the front, how original. And I was like, is that sarcastic? And then I noticed a lot of them are facing backwards. And I was like, I broke that trope.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I went backwards again. But I think the covers really stand out. And I think the fact that the women I write about are real women. And so when you close any of my books, like that's pretty much their real life story. And
Right.
I always challenge my readers to walk away without learning something, because I think, by nature, you're going to learn a lot just about World War II in general, but about these women that we don't really learn about in history class.
Exactly. I think that often we don't hear about the women that were doing things, sometimes in the background and sometimes very much in the forefront, but they were just not considered. In fact, I don't know if you know this. I have a friend who reached out to me and said her mother knew Nancy Wake.
Oh, awesome.
And she said that she died poor. Like she wasn't, you would think like she should be a national hero and everything should be good, but apparently that's not the way it was.
No, that happened for a lot of the women that survived. Is and some of them never really wanted to talk about it. Nancy, I think, talked about it. She actually ended up. They said she was one of the world most decorated women in the war, if not the actual most decorated woman. But she ended up selling all her medals later in life. She has a quote. I'm going to see if I can remember it off the cuff, but it was something like, she never had kids. She outlived her husband. She didn't have anyone to give her medals to. And she said something along the lines of, they might melt in the place that I'm going. So why didn't I sell them?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I did. I have a friend who's from England, and she just reached out and she was like, oh, you're not going to believe this. My mother, cause I had given your, the review in my newsletter. So I had someone reach out and say, this is so crazy. My mother knew her. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because, when you read books, you feel like these are characters. And yet this is more than a character. She was real life. And then to actually know someone whose family has some kind of connection, I just thought that was really, really interesting. So you have you said her name was Virginia Haw?
Yep.
Coming out. What other things are you working on, or do you have in the background of your mind that you're just excited to be getting to, if you can get to them?
Well, my newest book that I'm about to publish is called The Doctor of Auschwitz. And so that was new for me. I was in Auschwitz for about a year, writing about this woman. And her thing was they wanted her to do sterilization procedures in Block 10 of Auschwitz, which was very infamous for the stuff they were doing back then to Auschwitz prisoners. And so she said no. And that was under the threat of death. And so the book kind of jumps back and forth between Adelaide's adventures in the 1940s, and then she was called to witness at a trial in the 1960s. It was a pretty famous trial in England. It was called Daring v. Uris. And so Leon Uris was an author who wrote the book Exodus. And he mentioned, like, in 2 sentences about this prisoner doctor named Dr. Daring that performed thousands of operations, sterilization operations on patients without any anesthesia. And so they called Adelaide to be a witness to this trial and to show, like, you didn't have to compromise your principles, even when you're in Auschwitz, even if you were ordered to. Right. Like, there was just a point where she was, I'm not doing this as a doctor.
Wow. That would be, I'm sure that was a very powerful story.
Ironically, I decided I was going to write it. I fell down a rabbit hole while I was writing Nancy Wake, and I discovered these women. It's called The Women of Convoy 31,000. So a lot of resistance fighters, including Adelaide Outfall, were sent to Auschwitz in a convoy. And when they got there, their tattoos started with 31,000. So they call them the Women of Convoy 31,000. And there's a lot of really amazing women also in that convoy. And then I was writing about these sterilization procedures, and I actually had to undergo my own sort of emergency one in the fall. So I was writing about the stuff going on at Auschwitz while I was recovering from a rather urgent hysterectomy. So that one was really close to home and not on purpose.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that must have. Sometimes that happens when I'm writing and things seem to be converging, and it's like, oh gosh, maybe I need to write about like world peace.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a whole lot better than having that kind of thing? So I understand that. Tell me a little bit about your writing. Do you write every day? You are an everyday writer? So what does that look like for you? First thing in the morning, later in the evening?
Well, I'm a teacher. So, and I'm also a mom. I have 2 teenagers. So in the school year, it's often a couple hours in the evening when I come home from school. On the weekends, in the summer is where I obviously do most of my work. So summertime, I just finished editing. So I was pretty much glued to this chair for probably 14 hours a day. But I do take vacations in between because as a teacher, that's when you take your vacations.
Exactly.
So I prefer afternoon, evenings. I think that's what I'm used to from the school year. But I will also do like my book sales and marketing in the morning sometimes with a cup of coffee, and then like you said, in the summer, it's a lot of just being in this chair.
Just being in the chair, absolutely. Are you a pantser or are you a plotter?
Well, I would say I'm mostly a pantser. And when I wrote my contemporary women's fiction, I was totally a pantser. And I had no idea, even with what it is, my second book, like I had an idea of what was going to happen and it didn't happen because the characters didn't want to do that. Which I'm sure that has happened. But because it's historical fiction and the story's already kind of there, I'm sort of both because I know what the end game is. Right. But sometimes the characters also still do what they do. Like in 355, I had a romantic relationship kind of spring out of nowhere, but I had to end it because in real life, these people did not get together. So I was like, oh, somehow this is going to end. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I do. I've done that where I've even tried to, I'm very much a pantser, 100% pantser. Mm-hmm. And I have tried to be a plotter because I was under the impression that that was the better way to write. I've since learned that the best way to write is the way that works best for you. But yeah. Mm-hmm. I tried to do this plot. I had it all laid out. My characters refused to play.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
They were like, no, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, and then it feels like you're trying to fit them into this box they don't want to be put in.
They don't want to be put in. And I really do. I get a kind of picture of them lining up against the wall in my office with their arms crossed, glaring at me, waiting for me to give up the stupidity of, creating this outline and letting them tell me their story.
Exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely. So that the next, you've got one coming out. When will the Doctor of Auschwitz come out?
I'm aiming for August 1st.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Okay, so around the corner.
Yep.
And then the next in the series of Spies will come out. When do you hope that one will be out?
Probably, I usually end up publishing in the summer just because the editing process, you kind of need to do it all at
once.
A couple of sittings. Yeah. So the best time for me to do that is summertime. I'm always like, 2023, I'm going to publish 2 books, and that never happened. So I publish a book a year, but I'm always like, I could do it. I could do 2 this year, and it never happens.
It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. So, hey guys, if you want to keep this conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have an opportunity to win a digital copy of Nancy Wake. So tell me something you liked or learned in this podcast, and you will be in the drawing. Kit, if someone wanted to reach out to you, talk with you about your writing, talk with you about research, even marketing, how do they do that? How do they get in touch with you?
I have a website that I try to keep up with, but the best way would just be, it's kitsargent@gmail.com.
Fantastic. So guys, I'll have that in the show notes. I'll have ways that you can get up with Kit. Run out and grab the book. It's really fabulous. If you are a historical fiction lover, you're going to like it. If you love World War II, you're going to like it. If you love a great character, you're going to like it. I really, really enjoyed the book, and I learned so much. And Kit, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.